My daughter chose her stepdad to walk her down the aisle, despite me raising her alone after her mom ditched her. The night my wife walked out, she didn't just leave me, she left our 2-year-old daughter crying in her crib. I never thought she'd do that. I remember the exact moment like it was etched into my skull. It was one of those nights where the silence of our apartment felt like it was pressing down on me from every corner. I was on the couch, nursing a half-empty beer I didn't really want, watching the ceiling fan spin lazily above me, when Megan came home from wherever it was she spent half her life these days. At first, I thought she was going to apologize, maybe even say something about how she'd been distant, how we could work this out, but no. She had a suitcase in her hand, a forced smile plastered across her face, and that look in her eyes that I'd come to recognize over the years, disinterest. "I can't do this anymore," she said. Her voice was calm, but it had this cutting finality to it. I blinked at her because I thought I'd misheard. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my chest tightening. She didn't answer. Instead, she dropped the suitcase at the door, walked past me, and went into Lily's room. I followed, my heart sinking as I saw my little girl, barely 2, clutching her stuffed bunny, eyes wide and wet with tears. "Mommy?" she whimpered, and then it hit me. Megan wasn't just leaving me, she was leaving us. My daughter, my responsibility, my little girl who had depended on me for everything, she was being abandoned. She turned to me, confused, reaching out her tiny hands. My daughter chose her stepdad to walk her down the aisle, despite me raising her alone after her mom ditched her. The night my wife walked out, she didn't just leave me, she left our 2-year-old daughter crying in her crib. I never thought she'd do that. I remember the exact moment like it was etched into my skull. It was one of those nights where the silence of our apartment felt like it was pressing down on me from every corner. I was on the couch, nursing a half-empty beer I didn't really want, watching the ceiling fan spin lazily above me, when Megan came home from wherever it was she spent half her life these days. At first, I thought she was going to apologize, maybe even say something about how she'd been distant, how we could work this out, but no. She had a suitcase in her hand, a forced smile plastered across her face, and that look in her eyes that I'd come to recognize over the years, disinterest. "I can't do this anymore," she said. Her voice was calm, but it had this cutting finality to it. I blinked at her because I thought I'd misheard. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my chest tightening. She didn't answer. Instead, she dropped the suitcase at the door, walked past me, and went into Lily's room. I followed, my heart sinking as I saw my little girl, barely 2, clutching her stuffed bunny, eyes wide and wet with tears. "Mommy?" she whimpered, and then it hit me. Megan wasn't just leaving me, she was leaving us. My daughter, my responsibility, my little girl who had depended on me for everything, she was being abandoned. She turned to me, confused, reaching out her tiny hands, and I caught her in my arms as Megan walked past without a backward glance. That night, she left, and just like that, our little family of 3 was gone. The first few months were a blur of exhaustion. I was working a job that barely covered the bills, living paycheck to paycheck, and somehow trying to be the mother and father Lily needed. I remember those nights vividly, rocking her to sleep while my own eyelids burned with fatigue, singing lullabies I didn't even know the words to, holding her while she cried through fevers and nightmares. Every cough made me panic. Every scraped knee made me feel like I'd failed. And yet, I did it. Because that's what you do when you're all someone has. I gave up on a lot of things I thought I wanted. Promotions? Forget it. I couldn't risk overtime or travel when Lily needed me. Relationships? Even the thought of anyone seeing me in this exhausted, broken state made me laugh bitterly. I couldn't imagine explaining to someone that half my heart belonged to a little girl who didn't even know how much she depended on me yet. My social life disappeared. Birthdays, parties, casual outings, all replaced by diaper changes, bedtime stories, and the quiet terror that maybe I wasn't enough. But Lily made it worth it. She was this little beacon of light in the darkness. By the time she was 3, she was already curious about everything, counting the leaves on the tree outside our apartment window, pointing at the clouds and making up stories about dragons and castles. By 5, she could sing the entire alphabet song and would correct me if I skipped a letter. She was brilliant, funny, and stubborn in the ways that made me proud and exhausted at the same time. Every recital, every school award, every tiny triumph, I was there, front row, camera in hand, heart in my throat. People always asked me how I managed it. Honestly, I didn't know. I just did. There was no choice. I loved her more than anything, and love has a funny way of making you superhuman and completely drained at the same time. Years passed, and as Lily grew, so did her world. She became this smart, kind, fiercely independent little human. People would stop me on the street to comment on her manners, her curiosity, how she always included other kids who were shy or left out, and I beamed every time. Because yes, I had done this. I had raised her, taught her, loved her through sleepless nights and lonely weekends. She was mine and I was hers, in ways that ran deeper than biology or law. Megan, of course, reappeared occasionally, always at the wrong time, remarried to a man named Daniel who had enough money to buy entire cities if he wanted, and the charm to make anyone think he was a saint. She never showed real interest in Lily. Birthday cards were sparse, visits were occasional, and often came with the subtle expectation that Lily would somehow owe her attention, affection, or gratitude. I never tried to stop these visits. Lily deserved to know her mother, even if her mother didn't deserve the title. Then came the day that changed the atmosphere of our little bubble. Lily was 16, that awkward age where everything is magnified emotions, appearances, the faint smell of rebellion in the air. Megan and Daniel came over for dinner. I didn't want to go out of my way to impress them. Why should I? I was just Ethan, the father, the guy who spent every day making sure his daughter didn't grow up feeling abandoned. But Daniel, he had that effect. A deep, booming laugh, perfectly tailored suits, and a charm so effortless it made you want to like him even when you didn't want to. Lily's eyes were wide when he handed her a designer notebook. A little token, nothing extravagant, but enough to dazzle a teenage girl. I watched her face light up, and in that instant, something shifted. The warmth and familiarity she'd always shown me suddenly had a flicker of distraction. She was dazzled, fascinated by this man who had only been in her life for a few years. I tried to hide the unease that crept into my chest. I reminded myself Daniel isn't the enemy. He's just a man who happens to be in her mother's life. But when she laughed at his jokes the way she used to laugh at mine, and asked him questions about the stock market and vacation plans instead of talking to me about her day at school, I felt a pang that was impossible to ignore. I spent that night in Lily's room, tucking her into bed as usual. She hugged me tightly, whispered, "I love you, Dad." And for a moment, I felt okay. But deep down, I knew this was the beginning of something I couldn't control. That she would meet more people, see more things, and maybe start to think they could replace me. And for the first time, I realized that love alone, even all the love in the world, might not be enough. Still, I held on to hope. I always had. I thought about the night Megan walked out, about the countless sleepless nights, the meals made, the birthdays celebrated, the first steps, first words, first days at school. Those memories were ours, and no shiny gifts or easy words could ever erase the years I had poured into raising Lily. I stayed up that night, listening to her soft breathing, thinking about the future. I didn't know what it would bring. Daniel's presence was a storm on the horizon, and I wasn't sure if we could weather it. But one thing I knew for certain, I would never stop being her father. Even if the world, even if her mother, even if Lily herself sometimes forgot, I would be there. Always. Because love doesn't end when it's hard. Love doesn't fade because someone else shows up with a fancy car or an easier smile. Love is patient, love is steady, and love is everything. And that night, as I sat in the dark, watching my daughter sleep, I promised myself that no matter what came, I would fight silently, stubbornly, and with every ounce of my being to remain the one she could always count on. It started small missed calls, changed plans, and Mom said I could stay longer. I didn't realize I was losing my daughter all over again. I thought the hardest part was surviving those first few years alone. I thought sleepless nights, working 2 jobs, and being a single dad to a toddler was the peak of my struggle. But no, nothing could have prepared me for losing my daughter in slow motion, not to death, not to distance, but to the quiet drift that sneaks up when love is constant but unnoticed. It started subtly. Lily began spending weekends at Megan and Daniel's, claiming, "Mom said I could stay longer." At first I thought it was harmless. Teens want independence. They want time away. I smiled, nodded, and told her to have fun. But then the weekends turned into weeks. Invitations became trips, plane tickets, hotel rooms, dinners at places I'd never even dreamed of. I'd come home from work, exhausted, ready to hear about her day, and she'd say, "I was with Mom," as if she'd been on some magical adventure, and she loved it. Who wouldn't? Luxury, attention, the kind of life I couldn't give her, despite pouring every ounce of my heart into raising her. The first time I noticed a change, it was at her 16th birthday. I baked her a cake, myself vanilla, with chocolate frosting, the kind she always liked. I stayed up late decorating it, wrapping the small stack of presents I could afford, and made a little handmade card. She walked in, eyes bright, until she saw the envelope and gifts on the other side of the room. And there it was, a necklace from Daniel, a gift card from Megan, tickets to some concert in a city I couldn't afford to drive to. Her face lit up, not because she appreciated my effort, but because Daniel had arrived with style. "Wow, Dad. They really went all out," she said, and she didn't lie. The gifts were impressive, but I felt my chest tighten, a heaviness I couldn't shake. She was still my daughter, still my little girl, but now she was slipping into a world I wasn't invited to. I tried to talk to her about it gently. "Hey, Lily, you don't have to choose them over me. I'm still your dad. I've always been here." She shrugged, almost embarrassed. "I know, Dad, but they just make life easier, you know? Easier." Life had been easy for me, just with exhaustion and love baked into every moment. I'd carried her through sick nights, through the fear of a world without her mother. And yet, she thought life with Megan and Daniel was easier. I wanted to scream, to shake her and make her see that money could never replace the nights I stayed up, holding her until she stopped crying. But I didn't, because I knew that yelling would push her further away. The tipping point came during the summer before her senior year. Daniel had arranged a 2-week trip to Europe. First-class flights, fancy hotels, private tours, everything a teenager could dream of. Megan called me, voice saccharine. "Oh, Ethan, it'll be good for her. She's been working so hard, she deserves this. You understand, right?" I swallowed my anger. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. Yeah, sure. The truth is, I wanted to tell her exactly what I thought. That no amount of luxury could ever compensate for a mother who left her when she needed her most. That every day I stayed up. Every dinner I made, every bandage I applied was worth more than all their trips, all their gifts, all their smiles bought with money. But I didn't. Lily deserved both of us in her life, even if both wasn't always equal. Even if one of us had walked out before. It was during that summer that I finally confronted Megan. She had come by one evening, claiming she wanted to catch up with Lily before the trip. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Megan, this isn't catching up. You're buying her attention and it's working. Don't you see? You left when she needed you most and now you're trying to fill that gap with things money can buy. She looked at me calmly, sipping her coffee as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. Ethan, you did the hard part. You raised her. You gave her the foundation. Let us handle the rest. I stared at her, mouth open, rage and disbelief flooding me. The rest? What about me? What about her dad? What about the person who was there when she cried herself to sleep for years while you ran off? She shrugged, perfectly composed. I told you, Ethan, you did your part. Now it's our turn. I walked out of her apartment, shaking, a cold fury and helplessness battling inside me. That night, I sat in Lily's room while she packed a small suitcase for her trip. She didn't look sad, she was glowing with excitement. I forced a smile and hugged her. Have fun, baby girl. She hugged me back tightly, but I could feel the distance in her embrace. A gap was forming between us, invisible yet palpable, and it was all I could do not to cry. College applications came next. Lily wanted to go somewhere far away, and Daniel swooped in with letters of recommendation, financial aid, and promises that she'd never have to worry about money. I helped her quietly, driving her to campus tours, reviewing her essays, and offering advice. But every word I said, every act of guidance I gave, was now filtered through her awareness of Daniel's wealth and Megan's occasional presence. My influence, my quiet support, was starting to feel secondary. By the time she got accepted to her dream college, I was proud. Immensely proud. But it hurt too. A twisting, gnawing hurt that you feel when the person you love most seems to have another anchor in their life. And I couldn't compete with it, no matter how hard I tried. The final blow came when Lily came home one evening, glowing with news. She was engaged to a guy she met at college, a good kid, kind and smart. My heart should have soared for her. It did, in a way. But then she said something that froze me. Dad, I want you to be there at the wedding. And Daniel too. I want both of you there. I forced a smile, though my stomach turned. Of course, baby girl. Her eyes darted away, and I caught at the flicker of guilt, or hesitation, or something I couldn't name. She said it politely, but the tone? It wasn't the same as it used to be. The tone of a daughter who was no longer completely mine. A tone that made my chest tighten and my hands tremble. I realized in that moment, the slow drift had become undeniable. I was losing her, inch by inch, to the world her mother and Daniel had created, and I didn't know if I could stop it. I spent the night thinking about those early years, her tiny hands gripping mine, her first steps, her first words, the countless nights I stayed awake watching over her. And now, years later, it felt like all of that love, all of that devotion might not be enough to keep her close. Yet, I also realized something else. Even if she started to drift, I wasn't going to give up. Even if wealth, charm, and distance were trying to take her from me. The bond we shared, the years of sleepless nights, hospital visits, scraped knees, whispered secrets that was ours, that could never be bought and it could never truly be replaced. But for now, I had to watch. Watch her grow, watch her explore the world, and watch her drift further into another family's orbit. And hope, somehow, that one day she would remember who had been there first, who had stayed and who had loved her when no one else would. When she told me she wanted her stepdad to walk her down the aisle, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She said, "He's been like a real father to me." It arrived one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, tucked neatly in an envelope that I almost didn't want to open. I had just gotten home from work, the usual exhaustion weighing on me, and there it was, sitting on the kitchen counter like a small bomb, waiting to detonate. Lily's wedding invitation. My hands shook slightly as I picked it up, feeling the weight of it in more ways than one. For a moment, I was overwhelmed with pride, imagining my little girl, my baby, stepping into a new chapter of her life. I smiled, maybe too broadly, maybe too quickly, but I felt happy. I should have felt happy. Then I opened it. "Dad, I'm so glad you're coming," her note began, sweet and warm. And then the words that hit me like a punch to the gut. "I want Daniel to walk me down the aisle. He's been like a real father to me, and I know you'll understand." I stared at the card, my chest tightening, my vision narrowing. I read it again, and again, and again. No, I thought. This must be some kind of cruel joke. She couldn't mean it. Not Daniel. Not the man who only came into her life when she was 16. Not the man who had never changed a diaper, never spent the nights awake with her when she cried from fevers, never cheered the loudest at her school recitals. That man, walk her down the aisle. I wanted to scream, to throw the card across the room, to rip it into tiny pieces. Instead, I sat down at the kitchen table and tried to breathe. I had raised her. I had sacrificed everything. Sleep, promotions, relationships, my own sanity to make sure she never went without love. And now, the first time in her life she had to make a decision like this, she chose someone else. Someone with money, charm, and timing on his side, instead of the father who had been there every single day. For a while, I just sat there. I didn't move. I didn't call her. I didn't even think about calling Megan. The quiet rage and heartbreak settled in like a storm cloud I couldn't shake. My friends noticed my silence. When I showed up for Friday drinks, I usually rambled, half joking, half proud about Lily's achievement. But that week, I said nothing. Just nursed my beer, eyes distant, thinking about how my daughter, my baby girl, was choosing someone else to give her away. And the worst part, I couldn't even be angry at her, because she wasn't wrong. From her perspective, Daniel had been there in ways I couldn't see. He had attended school events, bought her gifts, flown her around the country, and created the illusion of a perfect family. I had done it, all too, only mine had been invisible, quiet, filled with exhaustion and unpaid bills, and to a teenager, luxury and convenience can feel like love. Word spread quickly among my friends. Some called me immediately. "Are you kidding me? Your daughter choosing Daniel? That's insane." Others tried to console me, though the words barely touched the raw wound inside. I kept my cool in public, hiding my heartbreak behind polite smiles, but inside, I was unraveling. My friends debated with me, some saying I should confront her, some saying I should just accept it, but the truth was, I didn't know what to do. Reddit, if you've ever been in my shoes, you know this feeling. The quiet, gnawing helplessness when someone you love starts drifting towards someone else, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You can't compete with charm, money, or timing. You can only hope your love speaks louder than gifts and gestures, and sometimes, even that isn't enough. I debated not attending the wedding at all. I imagined staying home, pretending I didn't care, letting Daniel have his moment. But the thought of missing that day, of not seeing my daughter in her dress, of not being there when she took the most important steps of her life was unbearable. No amount of pride, no amount of hurt could keep me away. When the wedding day arrived, I dressed quietly. A crisp suit that had seen better days, my tie a little crooked from nerves. I arrived early, hoping to blend in, to make my presence felt without intruding. And that's exactly what happened. I was invisible. Megan smiled at me politely, Daniel's arm around her, beaming as if he owned the room. Lily's friends barely noticed I was there. I was a shadow at the back of the hall, quietly observing the ceremony, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. And then it happened. The moment I had feared and dreaded. Lily approached Daniel, radiant in her dress, holding a bouquet, eyes sparkling with excitement. She reached for his arm. "Dad," I whispered, moving closer. "It should be me." But I stopped myself. She had made her choice, or so I thought. I stayed quiet, hoping to keep the calm facade, hoping that maybe, just maybe, she would remember. And then the music started for the father-daughter dance. I was at the back of the room, standing quietly, watching as she and Daniel began to sway. My chest ached, my heart throbbed, and I felt tears prick my eyes. And then, in the middle of the dance, she froze up. Lily's gaze swept across the room. She saw me stand there, shoulders hunched, heart in pieces, pretending to be okay. Her expression changed confusion, realization, and something like regret flickering in her eyes. It was a look I hadn't seen in years, and it hit me harder than anything else ever could. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The laughter, the music, the smiling guess, it was just her, staring at me, and me staring back, silently screaming for her to understand. I could see it in her eyes. She remembered. She remembered every late night feeding, every scraped knee, every time I had held her tight when her mother hadn't been there. She remembered the father who had stayed, who had loved her fiercely, endlessly, without expecting anything in return. I didn't move at first. I didn't know what to say. My friends, the guests, Daniel and Megan, all oblivious to the storm raging between us. Lily's hands were still clasped with Daniel's, but her eyes never left me. And in that frozen moment, I realized something. All the money, all the charm, all the trips, all the gifts, none of it mattered compared to what we had. None of it could replace the years of love, sacrifice, and unshakable devotion that had built our bond. I wanted to step forward, to take her hand, to show her that she didn't need to choose anyone but me, but I stayed quiet, dignified, letting her process it on her own. Because love, true love, doesn't demand. It waits. It endures. And sometimes it waits for the other person to see it. That night, after the music ended and the dance concluded, I stayed a little longer than necessary. I watched her talk to friends, laugh at jokes, and smile at Daniel, but I also noticed the glances she kept stealing toward me. I left quietly, heart heavy, but still hopeful, because deep down, I knew that this wasn't the end. The drift had begun, yes, but the anchor, the love that had been forged in sleepless nights, scraped knees, and unrelenting devotion was still there. And I was willing to wait for her to see it. I was halfway home when I heard her footsteps behind me, and then she said the words that shattered and healed me all at once. I didn't even realize I had left the venue. I had slipped out quietly, trying to swallow the lump in my throat, to keep the tears from spilling. The dance was over, the ceremony mostly concluded, and the people around me had moved on with the party. I felt invisible, a spectator in my own daughter's life, like some extra in a film I'd spent years starring in. I walked down the dimly lit street, hands in my pockets, head down, repeating over and over, "She's choosing Daniel, she's choosing Daniel." My mind replayed every late night, every scraped knee, every first step, every fever I had nursed, and yet none of that seemed to matter now. Not in that moment. And then I heard it. Soft at first. Tentative footsteps behind me, echoing on the pavement. My heart stopped. I turned slightly, and there she was, Lily, my little girl, my baby who had grown into a radiant young woman, running toward me, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Dad," she cried, voice breaking, panic in her eyes. "Wait!" I froze, unsure if I should stop or just let her run past me. She didn't stop. She skidded to a halt in front of me, catching her breath, trying to compose herself but failing spectacularly. Her hands reached for mine, gripping my arms like she needed to anchor herself and maybe anchor me too. I messed up," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, choked with emotion. I thought picking Daniel would make everything easier. I thought it would keep the peace, that it would make Mom happy, make everyone happy." She looked at me, tears blinding her eyes, voice shaking. "I didn't think about how much it would hurt you. I didn't think about you. I forgot about you, Dad, and I'm so sorry." I didn't know what to say. My chest ached so badly it felt like my heart was going to burst. Years of sacrifice, worry, and sleepless nights all surged into one raw, overwhelming moment. I wanted to scoop her into my arms, tell her she was forgiven, that nothing else mattered, but I also needed to hear the words she was barely managing to say. I just wanted to do what I thought was right," she continued, voice trembling. "I didn't realize that the right thing, the right person, is you. You're my dad. You've always been my dad. Not Daniel, not Mom, you, only you." And just like that, the dam broke. I pulled her close, holding her as if I could make up for all the years, all the missed moments, all the pain in one embrace. We stood there on the empty street, just the two of us, sobbing quietly, clinging to each other as if the world outside didn't exist. "Come on," she whispered, pulling back just enough to look into my eyes. "Come back with me, please. I need you there for real, not just in the back of the room. I want you to walk me down the aisle, only you." I felt like I had been punched in the chest and kissed at the same time. The world blurred around me. My daughter, my baby, was choosing me, finally, truly, after all the years of struggle, all the quiet love, all the nights I spent wondering if she even noticed. And she did. She remembered. She wanted me. We ran back to the venue together. I didn't care who saw us. I didn't care who whispered or stared. I was her father, and she wanted me. And nothing else mattered. Megan and Daniel were standing near the entrance, looking stunned as we entered. Guests paused mid-conversation, some mouths open, some phones lifted to capture what was happening. I felt no anger. I felt only a quiet, overwhelming love. Megan's expression flickered between annoyance and humiliation. Daniel's smile faltered, replaced by something uncomfortably like guilt. Lily took my hand, tugging me toward the aisle. Her dress brushed lightly against my leg, the scent of flowers and perfume filling my senses. But all I could focus on was her. She looked up at me, eyes shimmering with tears, and whispered, "Let's do this together." And just like that, we began walking, step by step, down the aisle, past stunned guests, past the smug faces of Megan and Daniel, past all the doubts and heartache that had built up over years. My heart was pounding, my throat tight, but I kept my grip firm on hers. I could feel the life we had built, the bond that had never faltered, pulsing in every step. When we reached the altar, Lily turned to me and hugged me again, this time in front of everyone. The room was silent, tears streaming down faces around us. She whispered, "Thank you, Dad, for everything, for staying, for loving me when no one else did. You're my hero." I choked back tears and held her close, finally allowing myself to speak. "You'll always be my little girl," I whispered, my voice breaking. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. Ryan, her fiancé, was supportive, kind, and smiling, but I barely noticed him. My focus was on Lily, on the joy and relief radiating from her, on the realization that love, real love, had prevailed. Megan and Daniel retreated quietly, their humiliation palpable, their attempts at control crushed by the undeniable bond between father and daughter. Later, as I watched Lily and Ryan dance, I sat quietly, reflecting on everything that had brought us here. The sleepless nights, the hospital visits, the scraped knees, the endless patience, it had all been worth it. And I wanted to post this, not for validation, not for praise, but for every single parent out there who sacrifices in silence, who loves without recognition, who wonders if it matters. It does. It always matters. Even if it takes years for the world to notice, even if your child is momentarily blinded by charm, wealth, or convenience, your love shapes them. Your patience anchors them. Your devotion is never wasted. And sometimes, just sometimes, the moment comes when they finally see it and they choose you. Sometimes love doesn't need to be loud. I typed at the end of my post later that night. It just needs to be patient enough to be remembered. That night, I went home with Lily's hand in mine, a quiet pride swelling in my chest, tears running freely down my face. I had walked her down the aisle not for a photo, not for show, but because I had always been her father. Always. And now, finally, the world could see it too. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.